Last week, I premiered my Pride and Prejudice journal for the Nick the Booksmith Classics Challenge. And in it, I had eco-dyed papers that were included in every signature. I thought it might be fun to go through the batch that I made after I watched Rosemary Morris's boiled book tutorial for beginners back September 2017. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to see it, but I highly recommend it. She's got a few of her boiled book eco-dyed papers, and each one of them is more beautiful than the last. She was able to use a bunch of summer flowers, and it started with autumn leaves back in September. But while most of my flowers had already passed by the time I finally got around to making mine, I still wanted to try it out, so I got a bunch of leaves, and there were a few flowers still hanging on. I was able to use those too. Anyway, let's get right back. Let's get into it now and start out with some maple leaves. These striations here were from crepe myrtle bark. When the crepe myrtles grow, they release all of their bark and it all falls off. Well, I thought the strips that I was finding in the garden might be really interesting, and they turned out to have some pretty cool effects. More maple leaves. Here's some more of those striations I was talking about. And some other leaves mixed in. Maple and various leaves. I used a lot of different bushes that I had in the yard. That was about all I had left. Now these were the crepe myrtle. I used the bark, the leaves, and I also had some berries still on, and those ended up turning out really beautiful. And there's a bunch of the bark. Some of those berries. They're just kind of all intermingled there. These I folded into quarters around the items, and it was pretty neat because when they were folded around, I ended up getting both sides of the leaf, both sides of the bark dyed onto the paper. And those were other leaves that I had on there. I think that those look like they were rosebush leaves. There's got some really beautiful dark coloration on that one. Here is some cedar that I laid across with rose petals. I gave all those interesting shapes. And here I had just a few hydrangeas that were hanging on, and I don't know if you can pick up, they're very subtle, but you can see the coloration from the petals that I had laid out there. It was just light blues and greens. Ah, there's one of the little flower heads from the hydrangeas right there. And then also, I had heard from one of the videos that I watched that onion peels would give a really good color. And also gave some really cool patterning too. I just sprinkled them on top with the leaves. Here's some red that came out too from the onion peels. More of that beautiful color. They definitely look autumnal here. The coloration worked well with that journal. That's why I chose to use these. I can't wait for all of my flowers to start blooming because I really want to do some of those summer ones like Rosemary did. The paper, when wet and you're unfolding all that stuff, extremely fragile. So if you try to do this yourself, Be real careful. Although it just adds character, and I'll probably end up just sewing this piece back on there, which adds a lot of interest in your journal. Now these, some more of these that I did that quarter fold. I also had heard about adding metal to the pot as the water's boiling, that it would cause a lot of coloration to pick up, and it really did. The closer to the bottom of the pot, the deeper those tones became. Again, you can see how the way the paper was folded in the leaves, I was able to pick up both sides of each of the leaves, which is really cool, giving a mirror image. Now you're beginning to see some of the metal pieces that I had throughout the pots. Some more of that bark. And all sorts of petals. I just started throwing on by this point. I was throwing on all sorts of things together. More bark. This spring I'm going to try all those onions that pop up in the grass, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get a lot of really cool striations with that as well. Here's a bunch of the metal. You can see a bunch of washers. I put all sorts of things in there. Anything I found that I thought might tarnish at all, I threw in the pot. I tried coins. I put pennies. Definitely washers. That was a big one. I had some bolts. We'll get to those in a little bit. Here's some more of that cedar coming up here. And this was a really cool piece of metal I had found somewhere alongside the road that was shaped like a heart. And I thought that would be really cool. And what I did was I wrapped that around inside, and I ended up getting that patterning throughout the whole thing just from that one piece of metal. Oh, that was pretty cool. Here's a bunch of the washers here. And some of these, it's amazing. They pick up the rust that was on them. And one, if I'm really careful, I'll be able to find one that actually has a silver glint to it. This is one of my favorites here. Well, of course, because I'm looking for it, I won't find it. Anyway, it's amazing how varied it is. You just never know. It's a total surprise the way they're going to come out. After I had done a bunch of the papers, I thought, let's see what coffee filters would do. And by then, though, I'd used up the choicest of my things. So I did get some pretty good effects there with some of the leaves. And the black you're seeing is a lot from that metal. They're pretty, they're subtle, and it's more of a blended, almost a marbled effect to it, but they're very pretty, and I can see using these as a background in something. These are put in some really deep, rich tones. There's some with some metal. Oh, maybe it was on these. Yeah. I hope that'll show up for you on camera. You can actually see a glitter effect that it picked up off the metal. It's just amazing. Oh yeah, that one's got a bunch. Let me take a look and see if I can get that to show up for you. Yeah, you see that? Somehow the metal transferred from the washer. I think this is the coolest thing, and I'm definitely going to be trying that again. Oh, here we get to some of the bolts and all sorts of miscellaneous, whatever I could find. I went through my husband's stash in the garage, pulled stuff out of his toolbox. There's some big washers. These were really rusty washers. I thought those came out really great. I could see that in a steampunk thing. Here's some more of that gorgeous transfer. So pretty. Okay, and this one, you can see the leaf pattern around it. That one came out pretty cool. And then that's also got some of that transfer of metal and that. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed my little eco-dyed paper flip through. And like I said, be on the lookout. As soon as things start blooming in the garden, I will definitely be doing another boil. And I will be happy to share those with you. Thank you so much for watching today. Take care.